Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We're chatting with James Finlen, and he is the founder and CEO of School Apps Today, which is a company that he started during his 20-year journey as a high school teacher and a basketball coach. And here is James's mission. It's to leverage modern technology and the abundance of existing resources to develop a system to supplement our educational system with more relevant and energy efficient activity. So we're going to have this conversation to find out what James is all about and what sets him apart. So James, glad to be speaking with you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you.
Of course, and thank you for showing up. And so we gave a little bit of a brief intro about you, but in your own words, what's the elevator pitch for Mr. James, and what is your passion and focus?
I would say the bottom half of students in the traditional educational system, the students who, are told they're not quite cut out for it, they're not doing a great job, their grades aren't reflecting what their parents expect, and their self-esteem suffers, their confidence suffers. And yeah, those students probably could do a better job of taking advantage of the opportunities during the school day, time management, self-discipline, just do it whether you feel like it or not. Those things help us as parents, those things help us in any career. But I wish we were telling these kids, yeah, you can do a better job, but this 8 hours a day in a desk might not just be, bringing out the best in you. It didn't bring out the best in me. I just don't think we're made to sit in a desk for 6, 7, or 8 hours. And when we get up moving around and work with our hands, it's like, the kids who are told they're not cut out, all of a sudden they're the genius, they're the star student. So I think, parents and with children in that scenario, and I say the bottom half, I would probably say, the bottom 90% of kids, they're just not wired, especially today, to just sit and get. It's just not the way. So I think that I see tremendous opportunity to change a lot of lives with just some simple pointers on philosophy. I remember taking a student outside of algebra class. I was in there as a special education teacher assisting in Algebra 1. And he used to sleep every day. And I took him out. I said, look, I didn't see a whole lot of value in algebra either. I said, I slept in algebra also. And I probably haven't used algebra in my adult life more than once or twice. I said, but the real opportunity here for you is to develop your self-discipline. Make yourself do the things you don't feel like doing, when you know you need to do them. I said, that's the muscle you're trying to develop here today. And that's the opportunity you have every day. And whatever you want to be, if you want to be a professional YouTuber and you want to make it big, if you want it to be sustainable, you got to have the work ethic, you got to have the habits. These are muscles you have to build, and that's the opportunity you have here today. So just that simple change in perspective can, make a world of difference. And of course, we already talked about just admitting as an adult, a professional, a teacher, a principal, say, hey, look, I understand this system is behind. The world's rapidly changing, people are rapidly changing, and yeah, we probably need to do a better job of getting kids up and moving. I think that goes a long way to show a kid, hey, listen, you can always do a better job, but we can too. Meet them halfway. So I think my audience is parents, any adult who knows a child in that situation that might just be losing a little bit of their spark. Maybe of course, self-esteem, mental health issues. There's a real crisis. 20 years in education showed me there's a crisis evolving in mental health, and it's bigger than we think. And loneliness, isolation, these things are, the Surgeon General even said, fairly recently, that there's an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. So I think it's an urgent matter, and I think, I've done some looking into your background. I know you're pretty well versed in human development and strategies for people to clarify their goals, use certain strategies to gain a more effective approach. And I think those things for a young person, they don't just help them, today or this week. Those are things that you can apply to anything in life. So it's kind of that 80-20. Is it the Pareto principle or the Pareto? Am I pronouncing that correctly? I've never actually.
Pareto principle, I think. Yes.
Okay. So, those 20% of activities that, we can help them to see, hey, these things, they give you leverage today, this week, and for anything you try to do the rest of your life. So, really just a more effective approach. I like energy efficiency. I use that in my mission because I feel like that says it all. That says it all. Is when you're choosing the things you want to do on a daily basis, when you're choosing your priorities, you want to think, is this something that might have some synergy? Is this something that might help me here and here and here? So certainly clarifying your goals, getting real clear on those, internalizing them, and learning some habits of highly effective people. One of my favorite authors, Stephen Covey, the late Stephen Covey. So yeah, that's my passion, and I see a real need for it.
Well, this is exciting and interesting, and I'd love to unpack some of these ideas that you have, especially for helping the kids, because it seems like many of these ideas that you brought up, they seem to be luckily more mainstream now, but up until maybe 20, 30 years ago, they just weren't talked about on a daily basis, right? You would have to go and find some old like Earl Nightingale tapes or go and read some Stephen Covey. You would have to go out and pursue the success and the motivation. And a lot of these ideas that you're speaking of, as far as the self-discipline and the habits and the showing up and the sort of this 80-20 idea that you won't be doing everything that makes you happy 100% of the time. And you might not even be doing what you want to do 100% of the time, but you kind of have these priorities, or you look at the bigger picture and you say, hey, I'm this kid in school and I'm taking these classes, and I don't really enjoy algebra, but I know that I need to complete school. I need to get my high school diploma, and I know that this will lead to other jobs in the future. And you have that sort of delayed gratification of saying, like, I know that I need to find a way to choose to be disciplined and to show up and to get good grades and to study, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then sometimes it takes us a whole lifetime to learn, right? It takes us until adulthood and old age to realize that, like, oh yeah, I had to go and take my car and take it to the gas station and pump gas, and I didn't feel like doing that, but I needed to in order to get to where I wanted to go. And so this whole concept you have here about being energy efficient, normally you hear that in terms of like your home, like your AC system, but as far as mind and body, what does it mean to be energy efficient?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we talked about, and I love the point you brought up about delayed gratification. And I love that. I asked the class one time, I said, who in here wants to be happy? And of course, everybody raises their hand. And does anybody know the key to happiness? And of course, they stumble around a little bit, and then somebody will get a little warmer and say family and this. And of course, and I say, look, if I had to give you one thing, I'd say self-discipline. Because when you can't force yourself, when you can't do the thing you know you need to do, that's defeating, right? I mean, we all may have been there at one time, at maybe it was a day or a week or a month or longer, where it's like, there's something you should do and you want to do, but you just can't make yourself do it. So, I simply I connect it to happiness. I say, if you go watch those funny videos right now for the next 2 hours, you're going to have a lot of dopamine, a lot of endorphins kicking, and you're going to be feeling good. But I say, if you do these things that you need to do that aren't a lot of fun now, you're going to be 1,000 times happier for the long term in the future. So you give up a little bit now, you delay the gratification, but your reward is so much greater. So, connected to happiness, we all want to be happiness, and we all want to be happy, but they get that. Something that simple, if you communicate it the right way, they get it. And for a kid who is bringing home D's and F's, and everybody, you know, family and friends included, probably has some choice names for them, for he or she to kind of get a little bit of the secret sauce, and that light bulb goes off, and they can make the connection between long-term happiness and their ability to do anything they want in their algebra class, or their ability to go home and just make themselves do 30 minutes of homework, make themselves ask questions, So really connecting it to happiness, I would say, is the key. I think that goes a long way, and we can easily do that. Like you said, with delayed gratification, and self-discipline.
And so this whole idea of being happy, the thoughts that come to mind as you're mentioning it is that we can choose to be happy, and that many times we are our own worst enemy as far as preventing the happiness. And you're just mentioning these ideas about the all of the self-discipline. It's a muscle. And so if you kind of come home from school and you say, oh, I have to do this 30 minutes of homework, and you drag your feet and you put yourself in this really bad state, of course you're going to be miserable because you're choosing that path, versus if you toughen yourself up a little bit, and maybe it might be awkward for many weeks to do that 30 minutes of studying when you get home, but then if it just becomes something that you don't even think about, it's just part of your schedule, part of your routine, then you don't give your brain the chance to make yourself unhappy, and you just go through it and you do it and you get accomplished what needs to be done. And so you mentioned a few minutes ago this idea of loneliness, because it's really easy talking about motivation and self-discipline to just focus within, just focus on ourselves. But then you mentioned how there's this kind of recent development where we're kind of lonelier more than ever and more isolated. So can you explain that? Because being in school and being around your teachers and your peers, there's like the togetherness, and there's the community. And it's really unfortunate to be surrounded by people, but at the same time be lonely. So tell us about this loneliness phenomenon that has you so concerned.
Well, I think a lot of the connection nowadays is getting more and more superficial. We just share something and people like it, and that's the dopamine hit. That's the and of course, it's not fair. I mean, the dopamine, the notifications on your phone, they're triggering dopamine hits. It's not a fair fight. So we can't blame students, we can't blame parents. We all have a smartphone, and we're getting this instant gratification from something as simple as the notifications we get. But deep connection, being able to really confide in somebody, having somebody we can share struggles we're going through with. This is this is a major human need, and if we don't have that, and it's harder and harder to come by, I mean, there's a real hole there. And that's a real concern. So I feel like there's a real opportunity to, um, because one thing I've learned, Robert, is there's a lot of adults who are willing to serve as a mentor, for example, and providing a system where a young person can connect with a mentor, even if it's just 10 minutes a week, somebody to build a relationship with using a model. Okay. Something as simple as sharing your goals. Okay. Well, first of all, we got to teach them how to write goals, and, somewhat of an accountability partner, how to go this week on your goals. What are you going to tweak for the next week? Establishing some type of relationship where you can just share on a little bit deeper level with somebody in a systematic way for, to have at least one relationship that you can go a little bit deeper with. And of course, as time goes on, that might evolve. But you just can't go out and put the pieces together. I think it starts with adults who are willing to serve as a role model. So, in other words, it starts with finding adults who are willing to say, hey, look, I need to get better at this stuff that I'm going to be asking this young person to get better at. So we have a model where we have adults, kind of working that one-on-one to get better at these things they're going to ask the young person to do. So you got to start at square one. Adults who are willing to develop these skills. We do it around something as simple as getting clear on some goals and, measuring some progress and your priorities and such. And then, we take these adults who have been trained and we connect them in these one-on-one relationships with young people. Of course, we have background checks and all the other framework, to make that happen. But there's a huge opportunity there, I think. And it really all drills down to that connection, that need for a little bit deeper connection with somebody else, and the contribution. We all want to feel like, or we all don't want to just feel like it, we all want to know we're really contributing in some way to something more significant than ourselves, right? This is that whole idea of when you have a purpose in life that can pull you, forward, that can move you forward. That's going to give you more leverage to progress than almost anything else, having a purpose. So even if it's just serving somebody else in this one-on-one mentoring slash accountability partner relationship, it's at least somewhat of a purpose, somewhat of a contribution, and also it addresses some other key things if it's set up correctly. So that's the idea. I think that there's that old quote, there's nothing like an idea whose time has come. It's Victor Hugo or something like that. But it's times are changing pretty quick. And one thing I always say, I got into technology years ago, and I know you're also very very proficient. I've seen some of your work, but colleges, universities, they can't keep up. These institutions, they can't keep up with the change. So it's up to guys like us that can move quick, on our feet, and communicate these things and educate people and create systems, because these big slow moving institutions, and especially the K through 12 traditional system, they're filled with amazing people. Don't get me wrong. I mean, amazing people, but they're just not nimble enough to address the needs of today.
You're giving us so much to think about, and you're so right that the education system it is outdated and does give you kind of the real bare bones that you hope maybe stays foundational and does not go out of date for a long time. And then when you're an adult in the real world, then you stay up to date with the certifications and the conferences and the continuous learning. But if you expect high school or college to give you the knowledge you need for the rest of your life, then that's a recipe for disappointment. And so you're giving us so much to think about. And you kind of started here by saying that the dopamine hit is not a fair fight, that we kind of have this ancient caveman programming of, like, say you gave a candy bar to a caveman, he wouldn't stand a chance, right? There's just things in our brains and our bodies from millions of years ago that are just not really suited for the present day, but we're here in the present day and we have to make it work. And you're saying, so is there a way to make it work? Well, we used to live in tribes and these small clusters, and now we kind of have these schools and these classrooms, and it's in our nature to give back, right? Because if you were in caveman times and if you were selfish and you just took, then you might get kicked out of the tribe. But if you can learn and then also give back, then that feels good, and that kind of makes you more alive and makes you more fulfilled. So we need to pursue that. And so some of these things that you're mentioning here of the accountability partner and working on your goals and just learning good goals and the 10 minutes a week and things like that, like how do you and your company fit into that? Like, is this an app that you're wanting to get out, or is it out? But what is kind of the business side of this?
Well, my journey over the past more than 10 years, when I dove into technology head first, and I would build these applications, web-based mostly to start. And my whole goal was to follow the Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you're familiar, but he used to say, you know, scratch your own itch. So I used to build these things and say, okay, I'm just waiting to build something that helps me to better my own life. And when I find that thing, I'll know that I have something that's worthy of presenting to other people. So that's kind of been the journey. So, I recently trademarked, one of my app names, I guess you would say, and it really, it's not the functionality that's unique. It's just, protecting your name, but it's going to be a combination of web-based tools to help someone remain focused on these priorities, and it's got to be simple, right? Nobody wants to take something on that's going to require a ton of their time, but it's that whole energy efficiency idea, right? So we're going to give them about 5 different activities that are kind of on a weekly basis, and these are the staples. Okay, these are the staples. This is the core of what that energy efficient activity, and then we're going to weave in the mentoring, the 10 minutes a week, and we're going to try to scale that. But it really just starts with number one, scratch my own itch, which I think I've checked that box. But number two, let's just start serving, and keep in mind that as I was teaching for the last 10 years, I always kind of had these ideas in the back of my head. So I would field test, with kids in school, right? I was a special education teacher. I had to do IEPs, individual education plans. So I would try to take some of these energy efficient goal setting ideas and apply them to students. And I found a lot of success. So I was able to kind of hone and distill this thing, the essence of what I'm trying to do and what works and what doesn't. So combine these personalized activities with this relationship, forming a deeper relationship with somebody, to address the loneliness, isolation, a community of caring. I have a friend who used that phrase before. Let's create a community of caring. And I think that goes a long way. And, I don't want to box myself into what the end in mind is. I just think, if we can just impact one, two, three, four, five, maybe more lives, and with something that works, it's huge. Go slow, go small, go strong. I have a mentor that said that. You go slow, you go small, you go strong. So I think that's kind of the idea. And if it just impacts one person and changes their life or helps to steer it right, I think that's a huge win. But I think the idea is kind of it's ready. I do. I think that.
And this is inspiring with your go slow, go small, go strong idea, because you have figured out these sort of transferable life skills, right? And all your time doing the basketball coach and the teaching, you figured out how to motivate these kids, and you figured out these kind of tried and true fundamentals. Like, is there anyone successful out there who said, "Oh, I don't need goal setting. Goal setting is not for me." Like, there's some things that are just like required, universal, and your implementation of your goals and what you do with them, sure, that's up to you, but there's just these really basics where it's like, stop making it so hard on yourself, just pursue what needs to be done. So you figured out some of these kind of motivational and productivity ideas, and now, as you said, you're scratching your own itch and getting this proof of concept and getting people to implement. And so this whole idea of school apps today, I'm reading from your blurb here. It says it's a system that will focus on facilitating one-on-one connection between students and mentors while illuminating the opportunities that we all have in everyday life to strengthen our most critical personal values, such as those related to self-discipline, taking the path less followed, embracing failure as an opportunity to begin again more intelligently, and being motivated by the passions that come from working hard toward a fulfilling purpose for your life. And we all want that, right? We all want to pursue that. And so if someone says, I love what you have said here today, James, as far as your ideas and your app and your company, is there a way to install the app or begin using these tools, or like, will there be a website, or what's the next step after hearing our conversation today?
That's a great question, and this might be something that you may feel like you can contribute some feedback, because I know you've been in the game a long time, and I mean the game of helping people. And so obviously I want to build an email list. And the email list, I want to provide a monthly update on the development of the app, and I want to get feedback from the audience, along the way, because I really think if it's going to be something great, it's certainly not just going to be for me. It's going to be a team effort, right? So somebody can go to thegapapp.com, thegapapp.com, and they can subscribe for the monthly updates. And I'm going to once we go live, I'm going to include an extended free trial. So if you get your email in there, before the clock ticks down, I think there's 27 days till the first update, you're going to get the Cadillac extended free trial. So there's no, it's a journey, and I'm certainly not the foremost authority on this, but given my experience as a teacher and in the human development space, just with a hunger to learn, I think I'm in a good place to start. But I'm approaching this as a journey of learning and growth, and I just want people to allow me to share it with them. So, and I think I'll learn just as much along the way, and I'll certainly be honored to have even one person to speak to on an email list. So, yeah, I would say thegapapp.com, and you can punch your email in there, and we'll fire up and get going.
Wonderful. Thegapapp.com. And I find your mindset to be very healthy, James, that you're a lifelong learner and you know that things will not be perfect and that the only constant is change. I mean, I can only imagine it as an educator where they always bring in the new school district mandates, right? And they say, oh, now we're going to teach Common Core, or now we're going to change this about our curriculum. If you are set in your ways and you refuse to learn that, then life is basically over. So why do that to yourself? And why not make your mistakes public or share your journey and your progress with others? That way it helps them, but it also helps you, because that way it's not just about you. It's also about the people that you're serving and helping and sharing these updates with. And so thegapapp.com is the place to go. And in our last few seconds here of speaking here, James, you've had all this experience, right? You've helped all these kids over the years with the coaching and the teaching. Is there any sort of an aha moment you feel like telling us really quickly here? Like, is there a moment or a lesson or just something that really surprised you about your teaching career that you feel like mentioning in these last few seconds?
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. I would say that the biggest takeaway is just seeing the difference. It's that quote from Albert Einstein. We're all a genius in our own way, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to live its whole life thinking it's stupid, right? So, fish isn't certainly going to be able to climb a tree, and you can't judge. And it's the same way with kids. We're putting them all in a box and we're saying, here's, the standards we want to perform to. And don't get me wrong, there are opportunities there. I don't care what class it is. You have a responsibility, and the more you can execute, the more that's going to teach you to execute in other things. But I see the mental health issues developing. I see the loss of confidence, the loss of self-esteem. And one thing I got really good at was treating someone like they're capable of being. You look for their qualities, you look for their gifts, you look at them through that lens. And when you can help them to see it, I mean, you talk about lighting a fire. I mean, they're not getting that. Number one, it's like it's a shot of life because they're just not getting that. I mean, how much criticizing and complaining and comparing, these are the emotional cancers that Stephen Covey talked about, right? So, just treat someone like they're capable of becoming, show them where their gifts are, show them what they could be, find that gift or that quality that they can reach to develop, that they already have. They just need to develop it. The self-confidence, the self-esteem, there's just so much more there in so many kids. And that was kind of my specialty, was working with those kids. And I had a lot of success working with those kids. But so that would be the biggest takeaway, and that's a game changer. That's when your philosophy and your paradigm and the way you see life changes that little bit in that way. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities for you.
I agree with you. That's powerful to look at the kids' potential and to have the respect and the kindness to encourage them. And just because if you're some kid that you can't quite get there, you can't quite figure out the algebra, it doesn't mean that you're stupid or that you're not suited for it. Maybe you just haven't figured it out yet, or you haven't had the good mindset or practice or built up the muscle. Like I heard something the other day, James, where they were saying like, well, if say you have some voice in your head that's discouraging you, is that really your voice, or is that someone else's voice that you just listen to a little too much and now they're rattling around in your head? And it's too easy with these impressionable young minds to say the wrong thing, or maybe these kids say it to each other, and then their voices get stuck into each other's heads. And there is a better way, and we need to change the game and change our thinking. And we can do that by going to thegapapp.com. We've been speaking with Mr. James Finlen, Finn Diesel, about his new ideas and insights about educating, and we should go to thegapapp.com right now to find out more. And thanks so much, James, for stopping by and giving us some wonderful life lessons and advice.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.